Hey everybody, it's Charlie. This is going to be my non-spoilery Infinity War review. As you would expect, it was totally crazy, but don't worry, no spoilers in this video. There are a couple of things that people will walk out of this movie talking about in particular. One is Thanos, his performance, the way they ended the film, the post-credit scene, and then the way that they fit all these crazy parts together, because the structure of the movie is very different from a traditional Marvel movie, which once you see it will make you understand why other filmmakers and other studios don't try to do movies that are this big, like they just fall right on their face. Like the Russos pulled off a crazy hat trick. So if you are brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the Marvel videos. It's all going to be non-spoilery till the end of the week. There's giveaway stuff going on that I'll explain at the end of the video too. But just starting with the big bullet points first, it feels like the Russos and Kevin Feige wanted to do their version of Empire Strikes Back, because it's supposed to be Thanos' film. He's kind of like the Darth Vader of the Marvel Universe, and if you know the full story of Darth Vader, of Anakin Skywalker's fall from grace, they do try to give Thanos a backstory that makes him feel much sadder as a character, but if you know his comic book backstory, all I'll say is that it's a little bit different, so be prepared for that. But I believe that there were a couple interviews where the Russos said that this wasn't anything like the Infinity Saga, so that includes the Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos' Quest, all these big comic book arcs. There are a lot of big moments from those comic books that anchor the film at various points, so if you have read those recently, you will recognize that stuff. But the clever thing that they did in marketing this movie is that the trailers that they've given us are really like less than 5 minutes of total footage, and there's some blatantly misleading stuff. There are a couple very big, literally and metaphorically, moments that don't appear anywhere during the movie, so you're like, they pulled a Thor Ragnarok on us again. But I think the real magic of the film is in all the character moments and the pairings that they have. So that's really what they're using to sell this. Like, everybody knows about the Infinity Stones, everybody knows about Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet, but really they're trying to sell you on like this Winter Soldier, Wakanda, Captain America, Iron Man and Doctor Strange together. Like, what's that like? Thor with the Guardians. Hands down, best pairings were Thor with the Guardians, that was just absolute magic, and then, literal magic with Iron Man and Doctor Strange. So we don't want to say there were any bad pairings in the film, but some of them were sublime. Some of them were matches made in heaven. Why haven't they done this before? And some were just really, really good. But that sort of gets into the structure of the film, which I feel like some people have started to criticize the movie for, even though I think the Russos did a great job of featuring all these characters. You just have to go into it remembering that this is not the Avengers film, this is Thanos' film, so even though they're focusing on all the Avengers characters and the different pairings and all the trailers, really the perspective you're meant to take is Thanos going around on his heist for the Infinity Stones. So when you think about it that way, they actually did end the movie in a really awesome way. No spoilers for the ending, because that's all people are going to be talking about later this week. Don't worry, there'll be a lot to unpack, which is why Kevin Feige said that they're not doing a Marvel panel this year at Comic-Con. We want to give more people time to process what happens at the end of Infinity War. But it definitely had one of the best, if not the best, post-credit scene of all time. And no spoilers, but there's only one post-credit scene. Make sure you stay after all the credits. Just to talk about the characters and the performances, they've been focusing on some characters in particular, like Robert Downey Jr. is always prominently featured in all these because he's one of the main actors. Captain America, Thor, the Guardians. So hands down, best performance, like I said, was Josh Brolin as Thanos. It was great. He was probably one of the critical points of the film. If Thanos didn't work, the film would have a big problem. And I feel like they totally nailed the Thanos character. A lot of that goes into the visual effects, like the artists that construct him physically, and then Josh Brolin performing the character. But like I said, they took some liberties with his backstory, so it's not a one-to-one adaptation. They're just some really big tentpole moments from the Infinity Saga that connect his character to what's going on during the film. Chris Hemsworth was amazing as Thor. If there were any worries that you had about them sort of rolling his character back or him being a lesser version of himself from the end of Thor Ragnarok, forget about that. He's spectacular. It's amazing. Chris Evans as Captain America is on fire the entire movie. In Spider-Man, everything about that character was great. The suit, the way that they used him in the scenes to sort of diffuse the moment. He's just so happy to be there. Like, you look at his face. As you would expect, they sort of use him as the audience surrogate, so it's just like, oh my god, this is amazing the whole time. There were a lot of very notable secondary characters and cameos that they all used in very appropriate ways, like this is the best version of what they could do with this person in this movie. If you are seeing it for the first time, just because you might wind up missing some of the people if you go to the bathroom, don't drink the large drink right before the movie starts. Maybe do that like the second or third time that you see the movie. One of the few complaints that I think that the movie will get, especially after Black Panther blew up so big, is that there's not quite as much of those characters as people would have expected, given the way they're featured in the trailers. But like I said, that just goes back to them cutting misleading trailers. So what you've seen so far is not an accurate representation of how much each of these characters is in this film. There were a couple minor things that didn't work quite as well as I hoped they would, like the Black Order from a CG perspective. I mean, really cool idea, but just weren't quite what I expected. In Adolescent Groot, in execution, I feel like, is something that worked a little bit better on paper. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to wait till after I see the movie one or two more times before I do my spoilery review later this week, and then I'll rank all my top Marvel films. This is definitely top 5 Marvel films of all time, but I want to see it a couple more times before I give my final ranking just to soak it all in, just because there is so much to unpack. Like I said, even though it gets really nuts, it is not structured like a traditional Marvel film. I feel like the Russos made the best version of this that it could be. There were lots of reports too about parts of the film being cut out, the runtime being a little bit shorter. For the most part, I think that 99% of people are seeing the exact same cut of the film. I think that Disney cut it right down under 2.5 hours just from a business perspective, because so many people are going to be taking their families to see this, and they want people to buy 4 movie tickets for the entire family and not just 2 for the adults. So I think they were a little bit worried about families pausing at the thought of taking children to see a movie that was longer than 2.5 hours. But don't worry, the Russos did say that there would be a crazy amount of deleted scenes on the Blu-ray when they release that later this year. So whatever they cut out, we will get to see no matter what. And for the most part, that just means that they trim scenes down. It's not like they just completely cut out storylines from the movie. So you're still getting the version of the movie that they originally wanted you to see. It's just that they trimmed it just a little bit. But boy, that post-credits scene, they structured the film for maximum WTF payoff at the end so that when you're walking out of the theater, even if you're not a comic book fan, you'll be screaming. But without doing spoilers, the clever thing that they did was end on a moment that was a cliffhanger and not a cliffhanger at the same time. So I'll explain that when I post my spoilery review, because it's sort of like they're having their cake and eating it too. Like, oh, we're not going to do a cliffhanger, but it kind of is. It's more of a cliffhanger for people that don't read the comics and like can't make the jump to like, oh, you know, these are the other things that could possibly happen with the next movie. So if you're a big comic book person, your mind will be moving at 1,000 miles an hour about what's going to happen next. Don't worry, we'll talk about all that stuff this weekend. So what's going to happen next is I'll be posting more non-spoilery stuff tomorrow, but then on Thursday night, I'll post my post-credit scene video. We'll start talking about that. Then I'll post my spoilery review on Friday, and then we'll just go from there just based on what people request. Like, there will be a couple things that people want to talk about way more than other things. But I think at the end of the day, Infinity War is going to go down as a crazy film. Like, it's nuts, but it's the best possible version of the end of this big, 10-year story that they've been telling as it could have been. There's a new round of that Infinity Gauntlet giveaway going on. All you have to do to enter that is be a subscriber and leave a comment on the video. Click here to rewatch that new Venom trailer, and click here for more new Infinity War. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. We'll see you guys tonight.